The emergency alarm blared through Metropolitan General Hospital at 3:47 a.m., its harsh tone cutting through the usual quiet of pre-dawn rounds. I was checking on Mrs. Rodriguez in room 412 when it started. That awful sound that every healthcare worker dreads. Code black. Total system failure. I'm Sarah Chen, on BSN, and after 15 years at MetroGen, I thought I'd seen everything. But watching our hospital's entire electronic infrastructure crash in real time, that was new. Sarah, Dr. Thompson burst into the unit, his usual arrogance replaced by panic. Nothing's working. The EMR is down. Pharmacy systems are offline. Even the DAN elevator controls are glitching. What's happening? I was already moving, my mind racing through protocols and backup procedures. Get every nurse you can find. We need to switch to paper charting immediately. I'll coordinate with pharmacy for critical medications. He blinked, unused to taking orders from a nurse. But the administration will be useless until they get here. Right now, we need to focus on patient safety. I'd spent years building relationships throughout the hospital, from the janitors to the pharmacy techs, from the cafeteria workers to the security guards. While the doctors and administrators play politics in their meetings, I learned how the hospital really worked. For the next 2 hours, I coordinated a hospital-wide response. Nurses pulled out emergency paper charts we kept just in case. Pharmacy staff manually verified and delivered medications. Security teams monitored doors and access points that usually relied on electronic locks. By sunrise, we had stabilized the immediate crisis. Patients were safe, medications were flowing, and basic operations continued. That's when the suits started arriving. Metropolitan General wasn't just any hospital. It was the flagship facility of the prestigious Chen Medical Group, no relation to me, unfortunately. Founded by the legendary Dr. James Chen 50 years ago, it had grown into a healthcare empire spanning 3 states. The current CEO, Marcus Chen Jr., swept into the emergency command center at 7 a.m. sharp, flanked by board members and administrators. I was reviewing handwritten patient reports when they arrived. How did this happen? Marcus demanded, his tailored suit out of place among the exhausted healthcare workers. Where's Dr. Harrison? Dr. Thompson. Both dealing with critical patients, I replied, not looking up from my charts. The backup generators are stable, but all clinical systems remain down. We've implemented emergency protocols. And who are you to make such decisions? Board Chairman Wilson interrupted, peering at my ID badge. A nurse? I met his gaze steadily. Senior charge nurse, emergency response coordinator, and the person who's kept this hospital running for the past 3 hours. Yes, well, he dismissed with a wave. Thank you for your basic assistance, but this is a matter for hospital leadership now. Please return to your regular duties. Regular duties. As if managing a crisis affecting hundreds of patients was somehow beneath their notice because I didn't have MD or MBA after my name. The A-team reports it's a ransomware attack, the chief technology officer announced. They've encrypted all our systems. They're demanding $10 million in cryptocurrency within 48 hours, or they'll delete everything. The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted about insurance policies and legal liability. Administrators argued about emergency procedures and press responses. I stood quietly, thinking about the project I'd been developing in my spare time. A revolutionary backup system designed specifically for healthcare emergencies. I tried presenting it to administration 3 times over the past year. Each time, I was politely but firmly dismissed. This is what happens when we rely too heavily on technology, Dr. Thompson declared, finally joining the meeting. We need to focus on medical solutions, not computer problems. Actually, I started. I have a potential. Please. Chairman Wilson cut me off with a condescending smile. This is hardly the time for nursing suggestions. We need real solutions from qualified experts. I looked around the room at these qualified experts, administrators who'd never worked a night shift, doctors who couldn't find the backup generators, board members who didn't know the first thing about our actual emergency protocols. Of course, I said quietly, gathering my papers. I'll leave you to it. As I walked out, I heard Marcus Chen Jr. say, "Get me every technology consultant in the city. Money is no object." They had no idea that the solution they needed was walking out the door. No idea that I'd spent the past 3 years developing and testing a comprehensive healthcare backup system, one that could not only restore our current systems but protect against future attacks. No idea that while they were focused on their millions and their reputations, I'd been focused on what really mattered: patient safety. I went back to my unit, where the real work continued. Nurses exchanged knowing looks as updates filtered down from the command center. More consultants arrived, each with their own expensive proposals. Hours ticked by with no progress. By evening, the situation was deteriorating. Without access to medical records, medication histories, or imaging systems, patient care was becoming dangerous. The emergency department had to divert critical cases to other hospitals. The press was camping outside, sensing a story about one of the country's most prestigious hospitals brought to its knees. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Sarah Chen, my old roommate from nursing school who now worked at the CDC. Heard about Metrogen, how bad? I gave her a quick update, then added, "Remember that backup system I told you about? The one those idiots rejected? Yeah, would it help? It would solve everything. But they won't listen to just a nurse." Her response came quickly. Then maybe it's time they learned what nurses can really do. She was right. I'd spent my career being underestimated, watching administrators make decisions without understanding the frontline reality of healthcare. Maybe this crisis was an opportunity. I went to my locker and pulled out a worn leather notebook, Dad's last gift before he died. He'd been a maintenance worker at Metrogen for 30 years, teaching me everything about the hospital's infrastructure that you couldn't learn in nursing school. Sometimes, he'd said, you have to let people fail before they'll accept help. Opening the notebook, I reviewed my system's architecture one more time. 3 years of work, countless late nights, every detail meticulously planned. A solution that could save not just Metrogen, but potentially hospitals across the country. They had 36 hours until the ransom deadline. The question was, how long would their arrogance last before they realized they needed help from just a nurse? I sent a message to my small team of trusted colleagues, other nurses, its staff, and technicians who'd helped me develop and test the system in secret. Be ready. When they finally ask for help, we'll have to move fast. Then I settled in for a long night of patient care, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about being right. By dawn, Metropolitan General was in chaos. The expensive consultants had failed. Each attempted fix only made things worse, and the ransomware's deadline loomed closer with every passing hour. I watched from my unit as another team of suited experts rushed past, their polished shoes clicking against floors they'd never walked during a night shift. Through the window, I could see news vans gathering like vultures. Sarah, Jenny, one of our best ICU nurses, appeared at my side. They're calling an emergency board meeting. All department heads. Let me guess. Nurses aren't invited. She smiled grimly. Actually, they are. They're desperate enough to try anything now. The main conference room was packed when I arrived. Board members sat around the massive oak table, while department heads lined the walls. The tension was thick enough to cut with a scalpel. Marcus Chen Jr. looked like he hadn't slept. Our latest consultants estimate 5 days minimum to rebuild the systems, he announced. The ransom deadline is in 18 hours. What about our backup servers? Someone asked. The CTO shook his head. Compromised. The attack was sophisticated. They got everything. We can't run a hospital this size on paper charts, Dr. Thompson declared. It's not 1950. I waited, watching them spiral into panic and blame. Chairman Wilson was red-faced, shouting about stock prices and reputational damage. Department heads argued about prioritizing their patients. Finally, I cleared my throat. I have a solution. The room fell silent, heads turning. Some looked confused. They'd probably never noticed me at these meetings before. Ms. Chen, Chairman Wilson sighed. Unless you have 10 million in cryptocurrency, I have something better. I interrupted, pulling out my laptop. A comprehensive backup system designed specifically for healthcare emergencies, one that can restore our operations and prevent future attacks. Marcus leaned forward. What are you talking about? I opened my presentation, the same one they'd dismissed 3 times before. For the past 3 years, I've been developing a secure, distributed system that maintains real-time copies of all critical healthcare data. It operates independently from main hospital networks, with multiple redundancies and security protocols. And you're just mentioning this now? Dr. Thompson demanded. Actually, Jenny spoke up from the back. She's tried to present it 3 times. You all said it wasn't worth considering because she's just a nurse. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. How do we know it works? The CTO asked, professional skepticism warring with desperate hope. Because we've been testing it in parallel for 6 months, I replied. Remember that efficiency study you approved without reading? My team has been running shadow systems, proving the concept works. Your team? I gestured to the back of the room, where Jenny and several others stood. Nurses, its staff, technicians. The invisible workforce that kept the hospital running while administrators attended galas. Show me, Marcus said. For the next hour, I walked them through the system's architecture. Every question they asked, I had an answer. Every scenario they proposed, I'd already considered. Years of frontline experience had taught me what healthcare workers really needed in a crisis. This is impressive, the CTO admitted, but implementation would take weeks. 6 hours, I corrected. The infrastructure is already in place. We just need authorization to activate it. Chairman Wilson sputtered, You installed unauthorized systems in our hospital? No, I smiled. I installed authorized systems through proper channels. You just never bothered to read the proposals you were signing. Too busy assuming nurses couldn't understand technology, I suppose. The room erupted in arguments. Board members demanded to know how they'd missed this. Department heads who dismissed my previous presentations suddenly became my biggest supporters. Marcus raised his hand for silence. How much? For what? To buy your system, name your price. I thought about Dad, about all the nights he taught me about the hospital's infrastructure while cleaning floors the administrators never saw. About all the nurses who'd helped me test and refine the system while being told they were just support staff. I'm not selling, I said clearly, but I'll license it to the hospital under 2 conditions. They waited. First, the license fees go to establishing a frontline innovation fund, supporting ideas from nurses, technicians, and other staff who actually understand how hospitals work. Marcus nodded slowly. And second, I want a seat on the board, not as a token nurse, but as Chief Innovation Officer with real authority to implement changes. Absolutely not, Chairman Wilson began, but Marcus cut him off. Done. Marcus, you can't. We have 16 hours until we lose everything, Marcus snapped. Our choice is between pride and survival. I choose survival. The next 6 hours were intense. My team worked seamlessly, implementing protocols we'd rehearsed for months. While the consultants watched in amazement, nurses and technicians executed a hospital-wide system restoration. By midnight, Metropolitan General was back online. Patient records secured. Medical systems operational. The ransomware isolated and neutralized. The press called it a miracle. Prestigious hospital defeats cyber attack. The headlines read. They interviewed Marcus about the hospital's innovative leadership, while Chairman Wilson smiled stiffly beside him. Only those of us who'd worked that crisis knew the truth, that the solution had come from the people they'd underestimated all along. 1 week later, I sat in my first board meeting. No more standing against the wall. No more being dismissed or interrupted. We need to discuss implementing Ms. Chen's system across all our hospitals, Marcus began. Sarah, I corrected. And yes, we do. But first, we need to talk about changing the culture that made it necessary for nurses to develop solutions in secret. Looking around that massive oak table, I saw the shift in their expressions. Respect, finally, from people who'd never bothered to learn my name before the crisis. Chairman Wilson retired 2 months later, citing personal reasons. His replacement? Dr. Sarah Chen, my old roommate who'd helped me develop the system's initial concept during late-night study sessions. The Frontline Innovation Fund has already approved 12 projects, from improved patient monitoring systems to streamlined medication protocols, all developed by the people who actually do the work. Yesterday, a new nursing graduate asked me how I managed to break through the hospital hierarchy. I didn't break through it, I told her. I proved it was broken to begin with. Dad's old notebook sits on my desk now, next to my board member nameplate. Inside, I've added my own notes, not just about hospital infrastructure, but about the power of being underestimated. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right and then using that victory to open doors for others. The emergency alarm still blares occasionally. That's the nature of healthcare. But now, when crisis hits, everyone knows that solutions can come from anywhere, even from just a nurse. After all, in healthcare as in life, the real experts aren't always the ones with the fanciest titles. Sometimes they're the ones who've been there all along, quietly keeping the system running while others claim the credit. And sometimes it takes a crisis to make everyone else finally see it.